I never thought my life would take such an unexpected twist that summer in Boston. At 45, I believed I had everything figured out. A stable 20-year marriage to Michael, a thriving career as a professor at a prestigious university, and a charming home in Cambridge. But life, as it often does, decided to throw me a curveball when I received a frantic call from my sister Rachel.
Emily, I need a huge favor.
Rachel's voice was a mix of urgency and exhaustion.
It's about Daniel. He's going through a tough time and needs a change of scenery. Could he stay with you for a while, just until he gets back on his feet?
Rachel and I had always been close, though our lives had taken different paths. She had moved to the West Coast years ago, while I remained in New England. Despite the distance, our bond remained unbreakable. "Of course, Rachel," I replied without hesitation. "Daniel is family. He's welcome here anytime." I hadn't seen Daniel in years. The last time we were together, he was just a teenager, full of energy but a bit lost, like most young men his age. Now he was 25, and Rachel had mentioned he was struggling with some personal issues. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew I wanted to help. Perhaps he would add some flavor to my life. Perhaps I would feel lively to have someone at home with whom I could talk. The day Daniel arrived, it was a July afternoon. Michael and I drove to the airport to pick him up, and as soon as I saw him, I was taken aback. He was no longer a thin teenage boy. He had grown into a handsome, strong, and tall young man with a piercing intensity in his eyes. I had observed a man like this time in ages, but I realized he was my nephew, and I should not see him that way.
Aunt Emily!
Daniel greeted me with a warm smile, enveloping me in a tight hug. It felt so natural, as if no time had passed at all. "Daniel, it's so good to see you," I replied, feeling a rush of affection for him. Michael gave him a friendly pat on the back, and soon we were on our way home. The first few days were filled with catching up. Daniel shared stories of his recent struggles, a breakup, the pressure of finishing his degree, and a general sense of being lost. I listened, offering advice where I could, but mostly just letting him talk. He needed to get it all out, and I was more than happy to be his sounding board. But as the days turned into weeks, something began to shift. I noticed it one evening as we sat on the back porch, the sun setting behind us. Daniel had been quiet all day, and I finally asked him what was on his mind.
Aunt Emily,
He began, his voice soft, almost hesitant.
I've been having a hard time sleeping lately. I keep having these strange dreams, and I wake up feeling anxious.
Concerned, I asked him what the dreams were about, but he just shook his head, dismissing it with a forced smile.
It's nothing, really. Just nonsense.
That night, as I lay in bed, I found myself thinking about Daniel and his strange confession. Mark was not at home and had gone to meet his client in New York. I was alone in the bedroom, and it made me anxious. I wanted to help Daniel, but I wasn't sure how. Sleep eventually took me, but it was restless, filled with fragmented dreams. It must have been sometime in the early hours of the morning when I awoke to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. I blinked groggily, trying to adjust to the darkness. My heart raced as I realized there was someone in the room. "Daniel," I called out, my voice barely a whisper. There was no response, just the faint shuffle of footsteps. I sat up, my pulse quickening, and reached for the lamp on my bedside table. The soft glow of the light revealed Daniel standing at the foot of my bed, his expression unreadable. "Daniel, what are you doing in here?"
I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, though I couldn't hide the note of panic creeping in.
He looked at me, his eyes dark and intense, but he said nothing. The silence stretched between us, heavy and uncomfortable. I could feel the tension in the air, and it was suffocating.
I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about you. About us.
My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a cold wave of dread wash over me. "Daniel, you're not making any sense. You need to go back to bed." But he didn't move. Instead, he stepped closer, his gaze never leaving mine.
Aunt Emily, I've been feeling something. Something I can't ignore. I don't know what to do with it.
I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Daniel, please, you're just confused. You've been through a lot lately, and your emotions are all over the place. You need to rest. I stood up and tried giving a pat on his shoulder. He shook his head, his eyes pleading with me to understand.
No, it's more than that. I've felt this way for a while. I just didn't know how to say it.
Daniel, you're like a son to me. Whatever you're feeling, it's not real. It's just a result of everything you've been dealing with. Please, go back to your room. But then, I felt something touching my thigh. It was pushing against my thigh. I thought it was Daniel's hand, but no. It was what I feared the most. Then he took another step forward, his expression desperate.
I can't go back, Aunt Emily. I can't pretend this isn't happening.
I felt a tear slip down my cheek, the weight of the situation crushing me. Daniel, please. If you care about me, if you respect me at all, you'll leave. Before I could finish the sentence, I felt Daniel's lips on mine. I could feel his hands going toward my lower body. He was kissing me and I could not resist. All my logic and resistance fell apart when I felt something rubbing against my belly. I kissed him like I kissed no one before. I could feel his breath and the warmth of his body. I had never felt a strong man so close to me before, but then reality hit me. Stop, Daniel. We can't do this. Daniel moved away, but before I could say anything, he left the room. I thought I had been rude and I should not have stopped him. But if I had continued, something really bad would have happened. The next few days were really confusing.
We could not see each other in the eyes.
We avoided confronting each other. One day, Daniel came home but could not walk normally. So I asked, Daniel, what happened? He saw me but did not reply. Daniel, I know what happened between us, but I don't want that to be the reason that our relationship is destroyed. Tell me, what happened?
I had a small accident.
Daniel replied.
My leg got injured and I have to put on a bandage.
You cannot do it all by yourself. You can barely walk. Let me help you, I said. I went with him into his room, giving up support to walk. Then I made him sit on his bed and I began to prepare the bandage. But he had to take his pants off. Could you please? I asked, leaving the blank in the sentence.
I can do it by myself, Aunt Emily. Please just do me the courtesy to shut the door close on your way out.
But I could not leave like that. So I took his pants off and began to put on the bandage. He had his underwear on, so it was all right. Nothing wrong. But as I was about to finish putting on the bandage, I could not believe what I saw. I looked into Daniel's eyes and he was embarrassed.
I'm sorry. After what happened, I can't control myself.
He said.
And neither can I now, I replied. Then the forbidden happened. Daniel kissed me hard and I lay with him on the bed, and what followed was one of the best moments in my life. I had never been pleased that way. Daniel really was young. We continued finding time to be together and enjoy. After some days, Daniel confronted me.
Emily, we cannot let this happen like this. We cannot hide anymore. We have to tell everyone so we can be together without any fear.
Daniel said. Are you crazy? It will destroy my marriage, I replied.
Okay, you have to decide whether you love Mark and enjoy being with him or more.
Daniel said. What do you want me to do? I asked.
Divorce Mark and be with me.
Daniel said. I went silent. I knew if I wanted to be with Daniel, divorce was necessary. I thought about this for many days and decided to divorce Mark. I was not happy with him the way I was with Daniel, and I could not cheat on Mark. So I filed for divorce and came back home to collect my things, but I saw Daniel already there. I was happy and excited to tell him that I had filed the divorce.
Aunt Emily, I have been confused.
Daniel said.
We don't love each other. It was just a fantasy, and we cannot live our lives together based on this. I am leaving Boston and going away to clear up my mind. I suggest you be with Mark because he is a nice man.
I could not say anything. Okay, best of luck, was what I could say. Daniel left, and after a few days, I was divorced. Luckily, I had my job and I managed to buy an apartment where I could live. One day, as I sat in my quiet home, reflecting on everything that had happened, I knew that this chapter in my life would stay with me forever.